Wow, it's thundering outside, which is weird because it's like totally sunny, but it's thundering. Very strange. So I'm just gonna start with some laying some lines here. How you guys doing? Having a nice afternoon? I just got finished doing a live with the family. So now I am on to my drawing. So today, I told you guys yesterday that I was going to tell you about my scar. Everybody has scars. Some are more obvious than others. Mine happens to be quite the conversation piece. I think some people are just embarrassed. They don't want to ask, so they just kind of see them looking, but they don't say anything. And other people just come right out and ask me. But I've been asked enough times where, you know, when you have to answer the same things over and over and over again, you kind of just get tired of it. And it's not anybody's fault, because people that are asking it, they never heard the answer, but you've had to answer it so many times. So for me, like, when I feel that way, I end up just starting to like think about, you know, maybe I can tell something different, or just kind of be more smart aleck about it. So I come up with silly stuff. But anyway, so I got this scar on my arm and later on in life, and it was definitely an adult. It wasn't like a childhood thing. I didn't get it when I was reckless in my 20s. I got this in 2014, and I got it while I was abroad. I was in Japan, and I was traveling. This was my second time visiting, and it was, I was early 40s, maybe, or late 30s. I can't quite remember, but it was in 2014. You know, after a certain amount of time, like, I don't know, for me, I don't even remember. There was one year I forgot how old I was, and for an entire year, I told people I was a year younger than I actually was, not because I was vain or anything, but just because I had forgotten that I had a birthday. But anyway, so let's get back to my story. I was, this is my second time. It was 2014, so this happened relatively recently, and it happened when I was on my second trip to Japan. The first time I went was in 1996 when I was early 20s. Second time was 2014, and then I went again in 2018, and I was planning on going in 2020, but COVID happened and all the flights got canceled and everybody got locked down, and I didn't go, so I have yet to go back. But anyway, so I went with my dad, who was at the time teaching he was a teacher at the California College of the Arts, which is in San Francisco, and he taught a course where it was a course where he would students would go with him to Japan, and he would kind of show him his tour of all the relevant, what he felt were like relevant places for students to visit. And so this particular year, he invited me to come with him, and I was kind of like, I don't know, I wouldn't say I was a chaperone because the students were, you know, adults, but I ended up as just like kind of assisting him. And it was really exciting. It was cool because I had been to Japan, so I kind of knew what to expect. But it was cool because I could actually, I went with my dad, you know, and as adults, I don't know, my experience is I don't travel with family that much as an adult, like with my folks or anything. And it was really cool. I got to spend 2 weeks with him, and I was going to get to see like my dad's version of Japan, so that was fun. So anyway, we saw a lot of cool stuff. We went to a lot of museums, went to a lot of temples and shrines, and got to go to all sorts of places. We were in Tokyo, and then we went to Kyoto, and at the end we were gonna circle back around to Tokyo before we went back home. And we have some relatives in Yokohama, which is nearby Tokyo. So we were gonna have one evening where, you know, it was kind of a free night. All the students, they could go off and explore Tokyo on their own. And my dad and I were gonna go visit with one of his cousins. So it's a rainy night, and I was really excited because we were gonna go to an izakaya, which is kind of like I guess it's been described as kind of like Japanese tapas. So it's like kind of a drinking establishment, but they serve you like a lot of little dishes that complement whatever you're drinking. And so you get a lot of really interesting little plates of food that you wouldn't normally have at like a regular restaurant. But first we went to dinner. We met up with my cousin, or my dad's cousin, and we had dinner, and then we were gonna go to this drinking establishment, or to have drinks. I'm not a drinker, but I was really excited to have all the food and stuff. So anyway, we were finished up dinner, catching up with my cousin, and she brought one of my dad's other cousins along, and we ended up we're gonna walk to this place to have some more to eat and more to drink, and anyway, yeah, so that's what we did. We were walking, and it was a downpour. Like, it was raining super hard. So I guess it's kind of appropriate that it's thundering outside, because it's probably going to start raining in a bit. But so we ended up walking, and I had these brand new shoes on. I brought like my regular sneakers, because we're, you know, doing a lot of walking around normally and just every day. But in this evening, it was kind of like more a dressy night, so I had gotten these shoes I was really excited about wearing, and we were walking, and all of a sudden, it's raining, and we're walking. All of a sudden, I'm up in the air, and my legs are above my head, and I come crashing down, and I hear this like crack, because I put my arm down, and I hear this crack, and I knew that it was not good. And I'm gonna get a little graphic. It's not gory blood, but just the image that I'm gonna tell you. So if you're a bit squeamish, prepare yourself. I get up, and I know something bad happened. I get up, and I look down at my arm, and I'm gonna be very vague about this, but I look down, and you know how like you look at your arm and you have like you have a joint for like, you know, your elbow and then your wrist, and I had another joint like somewhere around here, so we'll leave it at that. Sorry, but this is part of the story. Anyway, so I ended up being I knew it was, I instinctively like kind of clutched my arm and held it close to my body, and I knew that I didn't want to. I knew it was bad. I saw it was bad, and I turned to my dad, and I'm like, Dad. I turned to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I don't think I'm gonna be able to walk this off. You're gonna need to call somebody. And it ended up being where I had to stand up against the wall, because I knew that I was starting to hyperventilate. So I was thinking, I was like, don't panic, just lean up against this wall, take deep breaths. You don't want to panic, just whatever you do, don't panic. So my dad is talking to his cousin, and so they're trying to call, I guess, for an ambulance. And time, when you get into an accident, like, of course, the moment that it happens, time kind of slows down. But then afterwards, like, I guess also if you're kind of starting to panic too, like, time just does not move in the same way that it would if you were if there wasn't a big trauma that happened. But anyway, so I was just waiting, and the ambulance shows up. They put me in the back of the ambulance, and I'm in there with my cousin, my other cousin. It was just enough for my dad and I think either my cousin I think she was there, but my other cousin had to go. They wouldn't let us all into the ambulance. And I'm just thinking, because I know, like, I could tell, like, the cousin that my cousin brought along was very scared, and I just knew that in that weird, I guess because the adrenaline was going, like, I didn't really feel much of what was going on, and I just knew I just didn't want them to freak out, and I knew if I freaked out, everybody else would freak out. So I just started, like, joking around, and there's a picture out there somewhere that I think my dad took or something, but, like, I'm in the back of the ambulance, and I'm just, like, waving at the camera, and so we end up getting to the ER, and they bring me in, and my dad's there, and also my cousin, because my dad barely speaks any Japanese. Like, just background, we are not, like, Japanese nationals. Like, I'm fourth generation. My family's been here since, like, the late 1800s, early 1900s. But anyway, but we still maintain relations with some from family, and so she was there, my dad's cousin, and she's speaking with the doctors, and so she's kind of trying to like go back and forth between my dad and I, and then the doctors, and she's like, I'm sorry, like I can only, there's a lot of like technical speak that I don't know what it means, so I can't translate this for you, but they want to know what your blood type is. And, you know, if you're American, I don't know what it's like in other countries. I'm assuming probably everybody knows what their blood type is. But here in the United States, I mean, I don't know what my blood type is. So she goes back to them and they kind of look at her funny. Like, everybody knows their blood type in Japan. And it's, like, really important. And I think there's, like, a lot of, like, even, like, celebrities, like, if they'll have, like, all the stats on celebrities, like what their height is, what their measurements are, what their blood type is, what their, you know, horoscope sign is. I didn't know what it was, but yeah, so turns out I think I'm like A positive. So I remember, and then like, just gonna take a sidestep, years later, I had to get blood work done because they wanted to find out if I was pre-diabetic or had full-blown diabetes. So I talked to the doctor. I'm like, can I find out what my blood type is? And like, because I had forgotten again, because you're here in the States, we don't know what our blood type is. So I asked the doctor, and like, oh yeah, we'll have to check that box off, because you have to specifically, if you're ever going to get your blood test, ask specifically for them to check off that box where they test what your blood type is, because normally they won't ask for it, and you won't know what your blood type is. And it's always good to know what your blood type is, I think. Anyway, so they kind of looked funny at her because I didn't know what my blood type is, and she like said something to them like, oh, well, he's American, and they're like, oh, yeah. You can see them kind of nodding like, oh yeah, all right. And then so I'm in there, and they're gonna wheel me into the OR, because they saw, I guess I wasn't really looking down because I didn't want to look at it. I knew if I'd looked down at whatever was going on with my arm, I would have freaked out. So yeah, but the scars, definitely, there's like a scar on the other side of my arm. I can't really show you because it's kind of faded, but I think it like poked through, the bone poked through. Anyway, so I ended up getting wheeled into the OR. Like I said my goodbyes to my dad, and I don't know, something just flashed in my mind, like, you know what, sometimes people get put under and they just never come. I mean, this is kind of grim, but sometimes you get anesthesia and you never come back. That's it. So they were putting me on they wheeled me into the OR, and then the anesthesiologist like was talking to me, and I knew, like, well, if this is it, this is where I don't come back, because at that point I hadn't had any real surgeries. But anyway, so I was like, you know, if this is it, then might as well make people smile. So I looked around and everybody, and they put the thing on me. They're like, count to 10, and I'm like, I look around like, okay. I'm like, and I just said bye-bye, and they all started laughing, and then that was it. And the next thing I know, I'm waking up in the hospital bed, and I've got tubes in my mouth and around my face, and trying to pull it off, and the nurses are trying not to, so I don't pull it out. They have to take it out. And I just remember, like, they had compression socks on my legs, and I was like, take them off. It's too hot. And one word that I knew in Japanese is hot, because I've worked in kitchens before in a Japanese restaurant. It's atsui, so I was like pointing at my legs. I was saying atsui, atsui, like, it's hot. So they took them off, and my arm was all like in a whole bunch of like stuff. There was like ice, I think. And I remember like my feet touching the bottom of the hospital bed. And it was like, I don't know, it was like, it was really weird, because I guess a lot of people in Japan aren't very tall. I mean, they're starting to get taller because I think they're like eating more Western foods, but it's not, I was too big. Like they didn't have the right size gown. Like they had one hospital gown that fit me. And I'm not that tall, I'm like 5'8". So I just can't imagine if like some guy that was like 6 feet tall had to go into the hospital. He'd be in trouble. Nothing would fit. And anyway, yeah, they ended up, I was in the trauma ward in the hospital, and they had, you know, as I was coming to, like, my dad finally showed up, and I guess he said that the surgery was 12 hours, and they showed me the x-rays, and I guess they had put like there's two metal plates in my arm that are still there, and so I ended up having to stay in the hospital. They wanted me to stay. You know how like in the US they want you to pretty much leave as quickly as possible. Well, in Japan, they want you to stay for as long as they think they need you to stay. So they wanted me to stay and stay there for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I was like, I got to go home. So we ended up having to kind of go back and forth with my stepmom. She had to find someone on the U.S. side, a surgeon that could take over for the doctors and surgeons in Japan. They had to take care of me or they wouldn't release me. And the other thing that was kind of interesting is that it was way cheaper to have the care that I did there than it was in the States. But the thing that was funny, well, not funny. So if you ever go on a vacation abroad, please use me as a reason to get travel insurance, medical insurance, because I could have saved thousands of dollars that my poor dad and my mom had to like fork over for me, had I just gotten traveler's insurance. But anyway, since I didn't have traveler's insurance, my dad had to like put this on 2 credit cards. And I remember when we were leaving, he says, "All right, Aaron, I'm gonna try this, but I'm not sure if it'll work. If I tell you to run, run." So if the credit cards didn't go through, he said for me to run. But yeah, I ended up being able to get home, and luckily the doctor that my stepmom found did an internship in Japan. He was an American, but he had learned Japanese, so he was able to communicate with the surgeon in Japan, and let them know that I would be all right. So I got to go home. I was all right. I was able to convalesce in the United States at home. The other thing was cool is that they didn't, since I had the metal plates in my arm, I didn't have to have a cast. They had like just this kind of like metal, or this kind of like, I don't know, it's like a brace, I guess, on my arm. So I used that, and I had to go to physical therapy, and the part about that was that I could have lost my ability to draw, and I hadn't been drawing for a long time as it was, so it really it worried me, you know. It was like, you know, just because I am not drawing, I don't want to lose the ability. Like, I always want to know that I can if I want to, and I didn't know if I'd be able to draw again. So that was kind of scary. And I ended up doing the physical therapy. They put little electrodes on my hand, and I was able to, like, I couldn't turn my wrist at all, so I wouldn't have been able to draw if I couldn't do that. So I just kept working it, and I can draw again. And it was still a little stiff. I think it'll always be stiff because of the scar tissue or whatever. But I'm glad I'm able to do this still, because it very well could have been where I couldn't draw again, and what a shame that would have been, because then I wouldn't have never been able to do this. But it was cool because I had to spend a lot of time back home. I was out not working, and so I just started drawing. I got into what do you call it? Watching or listening to podcasts and looking online on Facebook, and I made a lot of friends on Facebook because I'm into, like, here's a little bit about me. I'm into, like, paranormal stuff, but I'm really a big fan of Bigfoot. So I started drawing pictures of Bigfoot. Maybe I'll do that one day. And I met a lot of people in the Bigfoot research community, because they saw my pictures and they liked it, and they complimented me on that. So that was fun, because I kind of was hanging out online with those people. They're a riot. Talk about a real diverse group of people. But yeah, so I think basically what I was saying in the beginning was I wanted to tell people different stories, because I started getting bored with having to tell this story that I just told you over and over again. So people was like, how did that happen? And the people that actually, like, had the courage to ask me, like, how did you get that? How'd you get this scar? So I started telling people, oh, you know, I was riding the subway in Tokyo, and I was on the subway platform waiting for my train, and, like, these, like, Japanese gangsters came, and I had to fight them, and I got beat up, and so and then I just started getting even more crazy with it. And I'd be like, oh yeah, there was, like, these robot ninjas that I fought, and that's why I have 2 pieces of samurai steel in my arm now. So that's basically my story. That's why I drew this picture of a guy about to fight some ninjas on a subway platform. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for today. If you're interested in following me, if you haven't, if you could please hit the follow button, like it, and you can always spread the video so other people can watch it, and that'd be awesome. Love that too. And what we're starting to do is every week, like I'm drawing 5 days a week. And what I'll do is on Friday after I do my fifth drawing, I put up a poll, and you guys can vote for which drawing that I do that you would like to see me finish and color and ink, which is what I did yesterday. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch that video if you've got time. And then that you can watch that on YouTube and Facebook, and then TikTok. We put out a kind of abbreviated version, so you can kind of like peruse my videos. And if you want to watch the full version, then you can go back and watch it on YouTube or Facebook. But if you just kind of want to watch the fast version, you can always go to TikTok and watch it there. So that's what I got for today. It's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun. Thank you. And I will see you guys soon.